Hi there, Dr. Gary here on the road. We sell dental practices nationwide. We're dental practice brokers. I was a dentist for 25 years and now I'm doing the brokerage for 15 years. All right, today's topic is finally the dental practice sale went through to closing. But last minute, it wasn't easy. We'll get into that. As you know, we now have 10 employees. We're in 25 states, and including we also have 2 CPA accountants. And we're now available to you 363 days a year. We take off Christmas and Easter. Our contact number is 201-663-0935. And our web address is dentalpracticeguide.com or nationwidedentalpracticebrokers.com. You could reach us there. We usually answer the phone East Coast 8:30 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. till about 8:30 p.m. East Coast time. So you can always reach us. Just give us a call. Everything you're about to hear is for entertainment purposes. It's not legal advice. Now, before we get into today's subject, mind you that if any of you are thinking about selling to one of the DSOs, the corporate dentistry, please call us. They'll often pay our commissions. There's no commission to you as a seller. They're usually looking at things over $1 million and higher, and with 5 operatories or more, and the doctor willing to stay on for 3 to 5 years. That's the general requirement. So they often pay our commission, so give us a call. We know who the best ones are. I work with over 140 of them. In addition, all practices for sellers that go to successful closing over $1 million will often reimburse your legal fees upon successful closing. Of course, you've got to go to the closing table, but we'll often reimburse that based on some minor criteria. So call us. We just did that 2 weeks ago, and a week before that, and 2 weeks before that. The doctors were quite happy, saved several $1,000s. So what happened in this deal? You know, the dental deals, let me first assure you, with good quality attorneys, dental attorneys, and a great dental bank, you're going to closing at a high success rate. Especially if you're far down the road. All right, there's always a percentage that will not go to closing, 20-25% early on, but generally you do find out that does happen. But this is a situation that we were very far down the road. We were so far down the road, they were already checking for wiring instructions for the seller and for the broker, me. So we're pretty far down the road on this one. So what's happening? I intervened because 2 weeks before closing, the anticipated closing, they didn't receive the lease yet because the seller's attorney, good dental attorney, said, I don't want to give up the lease. I don't want to show you the lease until we're 100% finished with the contract, the dental contract. Well, you know, I don't think that's fair. If you know somebody's serious and they've been a dentist for a while, they're pre-approved with the bank, I feel you should be showing that lease. But the attorney was holding back on the lease. I don't think that's proper, but that's what happened. They held back. So it was like 2.5 weeks before closing before we finally got the lease. So it was tying things up already. Then on top of everything, the buyer's attorney was busy, had a lot of activity going on, so he was slower in communicating with the landlord. All right? So now the dental contract, which they've been simultaneously working on, was finally finished, and they're contacting the landlord, who's then going to contact his attorney to check over everything. Basically, landlords don't want you to leave. They don't want you to leave. They just figure, just keep paying your rent and everything's going to be great. They don't want a new tenant if they can avoid it, because it's the venturing into the unknown. But either way, so now they're trying to contact the landlord. This is a small-time landlord. This wasn't a big operation, which works well and doesn't. There's two sides of it sometimes. So now it's a small landlord, and they're having trouble getting in touch with him. You know, he owns one building and that's it. He was in the foreign country, and now we're losing time because we want to get this thing closed. And nobody's responding. He can't get through. So now the closing's beginning to come up, and then the lease is being analyzed by the bank. They didn't have any questions at this point. Then all of a sudden, the landlord surfaces and they start negotiating. We're running out of time. We now have like 6 days before closing. We don't have a lease assignment. Okay? Should have a lease assignment well before this, because it should have been done simultaneously. But this is the cards. This is the card deck we've been dealt. We have to do the best we can. In other words, they were both great attorneys. But we didn't have a verified lease assignment. The doctor wanted a few more extra years on the lease. Then all of a sudden, the landlord says, hey, I just realized I have not, for the last 6 years or 7 years, I have not been charging the tenant, who's the seller, any CAM charges. So you owe me like $11,000. Well, it's not the seller's fault. The landlord never asked for it, so he figured he gave him a pass on it. So all of a sudden, the seller didn't have that much available funds. Now we're about 5 days away from closing, and the seller just didn't have $11,000 or $12,000 or $14,000. I think it was $14,000 just sitting around. It was 7 years of common area maintenance charges. So we said to the landlord, look, you know, you're asking for it last minute. We realized it was in the lease, but you never asked for it on a month-to-month basis. We thought you gave us a pass on it. We don't know. He says, no, I want my money. And the seller said, look, it's going to be tough. I don't want the $12,000 sitting around right now to give you in 24 hours. Can I pay you at successful closing? And the money you'll be paid right at the closing table. Would that be sufficient? And the landlord's kind of holding back. So, well, I'm not really sure. In the interim, we're like 4 days away from the closing. And then we find out from the bank says, by the way, this landlord bought this building while it was under lease from the dentist. And we just noticed that the previous landlord didn't do a lease assignment on this. There was no lease assignment. There's no signature here. And we're saying, you got to be kidding me. That was the previous landlord. We don't know what went on. It wasn't the buyer's fault. I said, well, we need that. And then we're saying, like, look, we don't know what happened to that, why that landlord didn't sign. I don't even know how we could find the landlord. Is there anything we could do? Now, the attorney's now saying, are you going to tie up the lease on us? They said, well, we're not sure. Now it comes to the area where there's no rules. There's no rules. Do we have to get it signed off? We don't have to get it signed off. You're in unknown territory. You're in uncharted waters. Is it a specific guideline? You must have that secondary lease assignment from the previous owner. We don't have an answer. So it turns out there was a lot of positive things about the deal. Everything was coming together. I don't think we ever got that secondary signature. But we did get the primary landlord's lease assignment finally through negotiations going back and forth. We finally got it. But it just wasn't easy. You know, it simply wasn't easy at all to do that. So what happened was we just kept moving forward on this deal, and everything was happening last minute. Everything. The bank saying, where's his signature? The landlord hadn't 100% decided that he was going to give the full lease assignment because he wanted to know where's his money in arrears for the CAM charges, common area maintenance charges. Well, he didn't have an answer for that. And the seller said, well, you're not going to give you $14,000 all of a sudden in 24 hours notice? My money's a little tied up. Can we do something at closing? I'll make sure you're paid at closing. So now the landlord's giving it to his attorney. Well, let me see what my attorney wants to do. So we have more days. Now we're like 2 days away from closing. Nobody knows if we're going to close or not going to close. All these last minute things are coming up. This could have been prevented if the lease was given ahead of time, if the bank did the due diligence ahead of time about this secondary lease assignment from the previous owner. Meanwhile, I'm in the middle trying to navigate this, trying to help out. Did you call him and this called that? Did you call the attorney? Did the attorney get an answer on this? Can we close? Or what's going on? Buyers getting nervous. Seller says, what's going on? The one attorney who's a little slower is scrambling last minute. I equate this to a dentist that is going to sit down and do a root canal followed by possibly a core buildup in the same day. So do one visit root canal and build up the core the same day. You gotta have everything set ahead of time. The core buildup materials, all the files, everything to seal the tooth, everything has to be set up. And the dentist is accustomed to that. He sits down, his staff has everything set for him. The patient's been confirmed. The root canal material's there. He's doing, if all goes well, the one visit root canal, and he's going to build up the core buildup right after that. All those materials have to be set up. He's going to fly from one procedure to the next. That's his plan. So everything has to be set. Everything has to be planned. There's no we'll rush around last minute and get you the core buildup material. Well, let me go scramble and try to find it. It's like, no, a dentist is not used to that. We are not used to that. So that's what we're trained for. Not this last minute, well, who did this or who did that? And this thing's not signed. Can we still get by? It was like a little bit of chaos. So ultimately, everything went through. Ultimately went to closing, but I didn't know if we were going to close or not. Everything was last minute, and it's like nobody was sort of prepared. And that's the way some of these deals happen. They will go to closing. I can assure you, a deal's probably going to go to closing, but there could be some headaches with it. Don't think it's going to be super smooth, and don't think because 2 days before they called you for your wiring instructions and you think, okay, I can relax now, take my foot off the pedal for the gas pedal because we're finally at the end. You can't. You've got to be on top of it. You've got to ask the questions, answer the questions, be on top, who's doing what. What's what we do as brokers, because we're used to this. I could see this thing falling apart a week and a half ago. I could just tell something's wrong. You guys are not moving fast enough. So we started getting on the phone, telling the seller, you better call your attorney and assist him and communicate. We're having trouble with the landlord. You got to straighten that out. And how's the landlord going to get paid? His CAM charges. We're kind of monitoring this whole thing. Of course, the attorneys are handling everything, but we're trying to help expedite where we can without interfering with the attorneys, of course, in their process. But there's a lot of moving parts in this stuff. You will be successful. You will go to closing. But some of these deals, they say, have hair on it. Have a lot of hair on it. It's a headache. So just be aware of that. All right? That's a quickie scenario. Hit the subscribe button if you want to hear more stories like this. We tell them as they're breaking, and this one was breaking, so we wanted to tell you about it. Thank you for listening. Hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified of our up-and-coming videos. All right? Great talking. Have fun and looking good. Bye now.